Unless you've been living under a rock or just off the internet, you've probably noticed that there's been some huge world-altering news going on lately. That's right, the discovery of a waltz by none other than Chopin himself. It's not that often that a niche piano moment like this takes the media by storm so much, but who doesn't love a good musical mystery? It's like getting an unexpected encore from beyond the grave. Indeed, this 1-minute little banger has captured the hearts and minds of pianists, listeners, and content creators all over the world. All we need is yet another YouTuber to play this piece and talk about it, and yet that's exactly what I'm going to do. Kind of. You see, the discovery of this new Chopin waltz brings up a lot of interesting questions about authorship, about archive, and about how we respond to discoveries like this. In fact, it wasn't that long ago that Chopin was in the news for a similar situation, except this time not about a newly discovered work, but a newly discovered photograph of the man himself. The photo, which was found and verified in 2017, was from a time in Chopin's life when he was obviously not in the best of health. Apparently, Chopin's student Jane Sterling was aware of these photos, and she wrote to Chopin's sister that they will not resemble him at all. Imagine your most unflattering photo from one of the darkest times of your life going viral 200 years after your death. But it's understandable why stuff like this captures our imaginations. It's a pretty exciting prospect to imagine that our favorite composers still have something left to share with us. It also makes these composers more real and relatable. It reminds us that they were just once working musicians who were sketching some ideas on the back of some scrappy manuscript paper, or who had projects that never came to life, or who had bad photos taken. Sometimes moments like this reveal an entirely new compositional voice, like when Florence Price's manuscripts were found in 2009 in an attic in Illinois. This whole situation got me thinking, what other famous composers have had recent rediscoveries of solo piano pieces? Musicologists and researchers are always looking for new things, and discoveries like this new Chopin waltz have been happening for decades. Today I'm going to highlight 5 works which I found on my investigation, or well, I didn't find them, but they have been found by others in the past 25 years or so. All of these works are by composers that you probably know very well, and I think reveal something really interesting about each one of them. There's one in particular that I absolutely adore, and I think that really everybody should hear, so stick around for that. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Tonebase Premium, the platform that makes videos like this possible. There's actually a recent entry on the Tonebase blog which explains everything that we know to this point about the new Chopin waltz. They also just kicked off their 2024 Black Friday sale, which is 50% off of all plans. Check the link in the description below to sign up and take advantage of this deal before time runs out. Finding a new work by Mozart is extremely rare, like finding a unicorn in a powdered wig or a violist who plays in tune. But indeed, in 2021, for the first time in 80 years, a new work in Mozart's hand was discovered. It's his Allegro in D major, a minute-long gift for his sister Emanuel that was premiered in 2021 by the fabulous pianist Seong-Jin. Now, if you're anything like this person on Reddit, you may be doubting that this work is by Mozart at all. And you would be right and wrong at the same time. Let me explain. When a new manuscript is discovered, it's not exactly like you can just go over to Antiques Roadshow and have them verify it.
Oh my God! Yeah, I had no idea. I just laying on the back of a chair.
No, it's a quite complicated process. According to the Mozarteum in Salzburg, this little tiny piece in particular went through scrupulous internal examination by the foundation, as well as review by 4 Mozart experts from the US and Germany who all confirmed that this little tiny piece was indeed Mozart's. So, okay, the manuscript was by Mozart, but the music itself is probably not by Mozart, actually. Most likely, it's actually just an arrangement of some orchestral piece that is now lost to time by some other composer who we've unfortunately forgotten. All of that research and investigation for this tiny little Mozartkugel of a piece. In November 2001, a mysterious manuscript was put up for auction in Paris. This was Debussy's final work, written even after the Etudes. The piece, called Les Soirs illuminés par l'ardeur du charbon, Les soirs illuminés par l'ardeur du charbon. I'm so bad at French, so I'm gonna just read the title in English. Evenings lit by the burning coals. Debussy wrote this piece in 1917, during the cold winter months of World War I, when Debussy was extremely ill and nearing the end of his life. In order to stay comfortable within his illness, he needed a quite big supply of coal to warm his home. And this piece is actually a thank you present to the man who provided the coal for him and who brought it to him. It's an absolutely stunning, tiny little piece, and it's made all the more magical by knowing the incredible story behind it. Sometimes a commission just does not go as planned. Such was the case with Music for Athletic Exercises, a lovely little piece by Sergey Prokofiev, which was written in 1939, intended for a huge celebration of athleticism that was to take place in Moscow, with a bunch of athletes doing, I guess, sporty, showy stuff. The event was being directed by a rather famous director at the time, V.E. Meyerhold, and one day he just didn't show up. He disappeared. So the event never happened, and Prokofiev's music was just simply never performed. Of course, Prokofiev's piece was probably the last of anyone's problems, as Meyerhold was arrested and imprisoned by the government and later executed. But anyway, now we have this wonderful little piece by Prokofiev, which was published in 2004 and premiered in 2010 by Boris Berman. Go ahead and pop this track on for your next cardio session. Can't believe we got a new Beethoven piece before GTA 6. In 2020, the 250th anniversary of his birth, a new Beethoven work was uncovered in Vienna. This one was just inside of a folio in a library, tucked in amongst other manuscripts and unfinished sketches. It had just somehow gotten lost in the shuffle of time. The piece is from the early part of Beethoven's life, around 1790, when he lived in Bonn.
Hey, that reminds me. What you gonna name it?
I took the title Ländlerischer Tanz.
Imagine how epic it is to choose the title for a piece by Beethoven. Ländler is a kind of Austrian folk dance form, and this piece got this title because of how much it resembles other Ländler pieces by Beethoven. At the moment, this work has neither an official opus number nor a WOO number. The subtle differences in how Beethoven's works are classified, whether it's going to be an opus number or a WOO number, are quite complex, but in general, the misconception is that all the opus numbers were published when he was alive, and all of the works without opus were published after his death. But it's not exactly the case. There are some works with opus numbers that were published only after Beethoven's death, and there are some works without opus numbers that were published while he was alive. It's more about how Beethoven himself conceived of his overall body of work, and many of the works without opus have become some of Beethoven's most famous pieces. For example, another relatively recent discovery, Für Elise, which is obviously now one of Beethoven's most popular pieces. So let's see where this piece will land in Beethoven's catalog and if it's got star potential. This next and final piece is a fascinating case study of mistaken identity and musicological malfeasance. It's obviously pretty easy to lose a 30-second piano piece that's sketched on the back of some little napkin from 1755. But what about losing an entire 20-minute piano sonata? Well, that's exactly what happened with Fanny Mendelssohn's Easter Sonata. By studying the correspondence and concert programs of both Felix and his sister Fanny Mendelssohn, musicologists knew that a work called the Easter Sonata existed. For a long time, they thought it was the same piece as Felix Mendelssohn's Fantasy in F-sharp minor, just by a different name. In the 1970s, this piece was finally premiered as a separate piece, but attributed to Felix Mendelssohn. At this time, Fanny's compositional prowess was not really that well understood, and she was assumed to just be a lesser composer of rather marginal small works. It didn't seem possible that she could write a full 20-minute sonata. Also, the manuscript is only marked as being written by F. Mendelssohn, so I can understand the confusion. After the premiere of this so-called new work by Felix Mendelssohn, the piece disappeared again, only to reemerge in 2010. when it was positively attributed to Fanny Mendelssohn. It's clear that this is a completely different composer than Felix Mendelssohn. The piece is quite stylistically unique. It's lyrical, it's virtuosic, and it has a quite abstract and unusual ending in the last movement that really breaks the conventions of a typical sonata of this time. I would love to see this piece be performed more. And it's a reminder of just how much there is out there to discover in some dusty attics or in some private collections, pieces that could completely change our understanding of the composers that we know and love. Each new find is like a little piece of history brought back to life that then creates an entirely new future. It reminds us that music, like memory, is full of surprises that are waiting for us when we least expect it. Thanks so much for joining us today. Be sure to check out Tonebase Premium, the platform that makes videos like this possible. There's lessons on Beethoven, on Mozart, on Mendelssohn, on Prokofiev, and something for you no matter where you are in your piano journey. There's constantly new material being uploaded. Check the link in the description below to get started with a 14-day free trial. And if you learned something new today, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm Robert Fleitz from Tonebase, and I'll see you next time. Musicological, what do you call it? Malfeasance. Oh, that's a great word.